Hi, I'm Walt, and I'm expecting a package. This is Delta Astrophotography, and I'd like to show you how to photograph the Horsehead Nebula. Ever since I was a little kid, the Horsehead Nebula was one of the most fantastic deep sky objects I'd ever seen. It was just so mysterious, and I couldn't believe something like that out there really existed. Now, to photograph the Horsehead Nebula, we'll need a star tracker like this Ioptron Skyguider Pro, or the Skywatcher Star Adventurer, or a go-to mount, like the package I'm waiting on. You'll also need a camera with manual settings like a DSLR or mirrorless camera, a good sturdy tripod, and a remote of some kind. For those of you who are brand new to astrophotography, let me just give you a brief rundown on how shooting with a star tracker works. First, you point your star tracker north if you're in the northern hemisphere, or south if you're in the southern hemisphere. It's easier for me to explain the northern hemisphere because not only is that where I live, but we have the North Star, Polaris. So we get the North Star centered right above our star tracker, and then we find it in our built-in polar scope right here. And we just use our altitude and azimuth bolts to align it where it needs to be. There's an app called Polar Finder that will show you where the North Star is supposed to be in your polar scope. Now that might have sounded a little complicated for some people who are brand new to this, but trust me, there's lots of videos out there about this. Now, if you're shooting with a small lens, like a 75 to 300 millimeter kit lens, what you're going to want to do is take a ball head and attach it to this clamp right here, and clamp it right onto your star tracker. Typically, you don't want a ball head this big. This is a little too heavy. I just could not find my smaller one for this video. Next, attach your camera. Also, you typically want to remove your strap because this can blow in the wind and create all sorts of problems. So now that we got the camera attached to the ball head, we can move it around in any direction we want. Turn the star tracker on, and we're ready to shoot. Bigger and heavier lenses need balancing, so I'll show you how to hook one of those up. We take our counterweight kit, our declination bracket right here, and we clamp that down onto the front. Now this thing is big and heavy with this counterweight on it, so it probably just ruined my polar alignment. So you're going to want to get a red light, like a red headlamp, shine it down in your polar scope, and re-polar align after you add this weight. Now we add our large lens or telescope with camera attached. See how I just bumped the tripod? That would have ruined my polar alignment and I would have had to do it all over again. So be careful out there and try not to bump your tripod. And there we go. You can probably see some wires hanging off here. That's just for my dew heater, and this is for my battery so I can actually plug my camera into AC power. Even with the star tracker going, if your rig is not properly balanced, then the stars are still going to trail. They're going to look pretty bad. So we have to properly balance. First, we're going to loosen our right ascension clutch. Hold on to the camera and let it fall like this. As we can see, the counterweight is too heavy. So I'm going to loosen my counterweight, slide it up, and there we go. That is balanced, or at least it's balanced in right ascension. Now we have to balance declination. Let's loosen up our declination, and let's point to where we're going to be shooting that night. Let's say the Horsehead is going to be over here. Now you can see it's falling forward, so I need to loosen this and pull this back just a little bit. This could be very dangerous. Please hold onto your camera, you could drop it. Now, as you can see, it's not going anywhere. That is a very balanced setup. And finally, don't forget to connect your intervalometer to your camera. It usually goes on a little side port. And I keep a little Velcro on the tripod leg so I can just stick the intervalometer there. Here's how they work. The first option, self, that's like a countdown until it starts taking photos. Next is long. That's how long our exposures are going to be. You can do anywhere from 1 second to 99 minutes. Next we have interval. That's the time between exposures. I usually do between 2 and 3 seconds. And number, that's how many exposures you want to take. Quick note, instead of using an intervalometer lately, I've been using this device, the ASI Air. Essentially, you hook your camera and all your other devices into this, and it sends a wireless signal to your tablet, and you can remote control everything from your tablet without ever having to touch the camera. Does this device make you take better photos? No, it does not. You can be just fine with an intervalometer. But what does allow you to take better photos is auto guiding. Auto guiding is essentially when you plug a guide camera and scope into your star tracker and either a laptop or the ASI Air. And it just improves your tracking even more, allowing you to take even longer exposures. So if you wanted to try that and didn't have one of these but have a laptop, it'll still work just fine. But later in the video, when I go out and actually start to shoot something, I'll be using this and I'll give you kind of an overview on how that works. So where exactly is the Horsehead Nebula? Let's check the app Stellarium real quick and find out. And here we are in the app Stellarium. Now let's scroll over to the southeast and look up, and we'll see the constellation of Orion. Now let's go ahead and zoom in on the iconic Orion's belt. And the star down here on the bottom, or it would be the one on the left when it rises a little higher, is Alnitak, and that is where you'll find the Horsehead Nebula. So it's probably one of the easiest things to find in the sky. Now here's a problem you might run into. This star Alnitak is so bright that it might blow out, cause a flare or a halo. I have yet to find a good way to keep that from happening. Yeah, that kind of sucks. What do you think, Ed?
No, sir, I don't like it.
To photograph the Horsehead Nebula, we're going to need a lens or telescope with a focal length of anywhere between 200 and 1,000 millimeters. Now I will say, once you get over 300, it's going to be very difficult even with the star tracker, and you'll start to have to add an auto guide camera and guide scope. Now, I'll go into a little bit more detail about auto guiding later. Now I have photographed the Horsehead Nebula with a 75 to 300 millimeter kit lens, which you might have seen in a previous video. I've also photographed it with this Tamron 150 to 600 millimeter zoom lens and my Radian 61 telescope, which is a telescope with a focal length of 275 millimeters, all of which you're going to see in this video. So some of you out there that might have tried this nebula before might have one question to ask. Do you need an astro-modified camera? And the rest of you are going, what the hell's an astro-modified camera and do I have to spend more money? For those of you who don't know, brief explanation. In front of your camera sensor is actually a filter that filters out a lot of red light. Now the Horsehead is a dark nebula in the middle of a bright emission nebula, and there's lots of red hydrogen alpha light. And our cameras do a very poor job of picking up that red light because of that filter. So we send our cameras off and get that filter removed. I got my conversion done at a place called LifePixel. I'll leave a link in the description below to that place if you ever want to get one. But to answer the question, no. You do not need an astro-modified camera to pick up all that hydrogen alpha light. Now, of course, an astro-modified camera is going to make a world of a difference, a massive difference. But if you want to do it with a regular stock camera, I recommend going out to a very dark location. Just find a light pollution map and find something in the bluish area or darker. Maybe a green area would work, but just try to get to at least a bortle-free location. So pretty much plan you a little vacation to a dark site, maybe a camping site, maybe call up that Uncle Bert who lives in a shack in the middle of nowhere. All right, y'all here to photograph a nebula? You know them things ain't real. Come on inside and get you some squirrel stew. And another key to being able to pick up more detail with a stock camera is just to take more exposures while you're out there. The more time you spend on it, the more detail you're gonna get. And some tips I can give you for doing that is bring backup batteries. When your first battery runs out, pop another one in. And if you're able to photograph near a location that has electricity, get a dummy battery for your camera so you can plug it in and run all night. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you a photograph I took of the Horsehead Nebula in 2020 with a stock camera and this lens at around 600 millimeters. No auto guiding either. Oh, you might want to know the camera settings as well.
Camera settings, yay!
Next, I'm going to show you an image that I took with the same lens, but on an astro-modified Canon T5i with auto guiding, so I was getting 3-minute exposures. And as you can see, there's a very large difference there, but that's still taken from my bortle-free yard. So what do people in cities do? Well, I've got an answer for that. Dual band, narrow band filters. Remember when I was talking about hydrogen alpha light earlier? Well, this filter only lets in hydrogen alpha light and oxygen 3 light and nothing else really. So You really get to see the details, and it filters out light pollution and sometimes even moonlight. This is my Optolong L Enhance. This is what I like to use. I don't live in a city, but this still gets out light pollution from street lights near my driveway and filters out some of the light from the stars, makes them smaller and tighter. Another option for even more light pollution reduction would be the Optolong L Extreme. Now these don't just come in little filters that screw into your telescope. You can also get them as clip-in filters, where you take your lens off and clip them right in front of your sensor. They're especially popular for Canon crop sensor cameras. The one complaint about these filters is your images are not going to be true color. Hydrogen alpha is a red light, and oxygen 3 is a kind of a teal color. So those are the colors you're going to be letting in. It's not very convenient for me to drive into the city to do astrophotography because, for one thing, where would I go? And why would I want to? But I will go into a city someday to test out the light pollution filters. But for now, sometimes I struggle with a different kind of light pollution, and that's from the moon. Let's go back in time and check out an imaging session that I did that involved the moon.
I have no idea!
Oh, no, not that far back in time. Let's try like 2 weeks. See that moon right back there? That's normally my sworn enemy. But screw it, we're gonna try to shoot tonight anyway. After I was done imaging that night, I put my lens cap on and took 30 frames with the lens cap on, keeping my settings the same. Those are called dark frames. They're just used to remove more noise in your stacking software. If you watch any one of my processing tutorials, you'll see a little bit more about stacking. There are also two other types of calibration frames that you can use to improve your photos as well: flats and bias. Flats are taken to remove vignetting and any dust motes or anything you might have on your sensor or lens. Now, I only use flats and bias on half the photos you see in this video, so they're not 100% necessary, but they do make a big difference, especially if you have vignetting problems. But flats are kind of complicated to take, so I'm going to save that for an entirely another video that will be coming soon. So a couple of nights ago, I took the light pollution filter out of the Radian 61 and reattached the camera, went out and set up and shot the Horsehead one more time with no filter from my Bortle 3 location. I managed to take 3 hours worth of data, and I am very excited to show you the amount of detail I was able to collect. So I hope you enjoy my final photo. And as always, thanks so much for watching. It really means a lot. You guys have been so awesome in the past year. I never thought this channel would grow this fast. So if you liked what you saw, if you learned anything, please give me a comment, leave me a like, and if you want more stuff like this, hit the subscribe button. You guys are wonderful. Stay spacey, clear skies, and good night. After 8 months, my package has arrived. Finally, now the fun can begin.